Life is a workout, and Smoothie King is here to help you power through. Whether you're grinding out bicep curls or muscling the couch across the living room, crushing morning miles, or sprinting through back-to-back meetings, Smoothie King has fuel to help you maximize your workouts, own your recovery, and elevate your game. Give your body the energy, protein, and power it needs with a lineup of delicious smoothies made to help you conquer your goals. Only at Smoothie King.
Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of your Bish Therapist podcast. I am your host, Melissa Reich, your Bish Therapist, and today I am so happy to have my next guest from So Bad It's Good with Ryan Bailey. Please welcome Ryan Bailey. Hi, Ryan.
What's up, Bishes? What's up?
Bish Nation.
You got to think advertising. You got to think what's going to connect.
Know.
Bishes, yeah.
I know. I'm so bad at that. You're so good at that, Ryan. So listen.
Oh, I'm so bad at it. I like doing that for other people of like thinking what would be the great catchphrase or something. But then sometimes when I do it for my own self, it makes me feel really douchey. You know,
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think we talked about this last time of just like having to shout yourself out is the worst part of content creation, in my opinion. And it really rubs up against everything that I've been insecure about my entire life, you know, because the reality is we want other people to shout us out or like us enough to talk about us. And that's just not how this goes, unfortunately.
No. It's honestly, and it's funny because I do remember we talked about this last time you were here. It goes into being like a self-advocate, but I know you struggle with that, and I certainly struggle with that. So when we're together, it's just a wild scene, man. It's a wild scene.
It's a lot of insecurity coming at you this fine day. No, I mean, the goal is to eventually get so successful that you can pay other people to shout you out like that. Then you have to give a portion of whatever you earn just so that they can find ways to shout you out in the press. It's so bizarre.
It is so bizarre. But listen, speaking of all of that, I'm grateful to have you back on the show. I texted you the other day. I'm just like so proud of you. I feel like you really are crushing it. You've been on Jeff Lewis Live. Your podcast has just like been amazing. And so I am just like really grateful you're here and so proud of everything you've been doing. It's what's that been like?
You texted me that. It's so funny. Like that. It's so nice, first off. But second off, when you do this, you don't really stop ever to think about, I don't know, you just don't think about it. So it's really nice to hear, somebody think that it's working, because I don't take the time to sit there and like, oh, is this working? Is that working? I just keep my head down and try to work as much as possible to keep the voices in my head at bay.
Well, that's what therapy's for, my friend.
Yeah. I mean, this is I am in therapy, and this is what I consider my therapy. Just this, we do it about once a year. No, I actually am in therapy. I'm good.
No, I know, me too. I just saw my own Bish therapist. I see her every week, and she definitely really helps when it comes to that stuff. When you're on Jeff Lewis Live with all these people, what is that like for you? Because I know kind of where some of those struggles are. What has that experience been like for you in terms of that, how you perceive yourself and then like what you're actually doing?
It's interesting because first off, I have a great time. Like Jeff makes fun of me mercilessly.
Yes.
But I always say like he, to me, is kind of a form of Don Rickles. If like Don Rickles made fun of you back in the day, it was Don Rickles. And to me,
Jeff made it. Yeah.
Well, Jeff has a sense of like, I appreciate Jeff's sense of humor. So if he makes fun of me, I think I don't listen to it back, but I'm usually laughing during it. I think the hard part of that is then other people will make fun of you that are not nearly as funny. And that's when it can get weird of, like, well, you don't actually know me. But Jeff, I have a great time. And the people that he surrounds himself with, for the last year and a half, I've made so many good friends, and I feel like I'm a part of a group, and I don't take that for granted. I know that can leave at any point, at any time. But right now, it's really just enjoyable for me. And you never know there's nothing planned out. You never know the direction in which it's going to go. I always say something really idiotic, but it's great because it's a counterbalance to my actual show where I talk about all of these reality shows and pop culture. And his show is not like that. I mean, that stuff will come up, but it's more about your life or his life, and you're reacting to that, or you're reacting to whoever he pairs you up with that day. So it's like a great exercise. So I truly geek out about it every week I get to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so funny to hear you explain it like that because you get to flex those muscles that like, sometimes for me anyway, when I talk about Bravo, it's like I love talking about other things too, right? Because our life is multifaceted. It's not just about Bravo. We watch other things. We like other things. And so when you get to talk to some people, just like, it seems like more like improv-y, like yes and, as Jameson might say, like, that sort of stuff.
Or the best part is when you actually just get so into it that it's not even work. You're just having a conversation and it's just with a bunch of really quick people that, I mean, to me, it's very, very enjoyable. Like, when I first started, I think I went in with like a plan of some sort, or maybe I'll bring this up or bring that up. And that's just not that show. So you really get to roll with it and you never know what they're going to pop on. Like, they'll do things now like, to fully embarrass me, but
I've heard.
No, it's great. I mean, but it's like hysterical. I mean, to me, I appreciate it. I mean, I grew up on Stern. I grew up listening to Stern as a kid. And to me, it reminds me so much of that. And where I loved, it wasn't about Stern and like the sex stuff that he was doing. It was all about the stuff that I enjoyed most was the stuff between him and his staff and all the people around him. And he would really just roast them. And that was the stuff I loved. So to be a small part of something that I know they're not going for that. I don't think Jeff has ever listened to Stern, but I really geek out about that because I'm like, I know this. I know this kind of genre.
Well, sure. And it's so funny you compare that because my husband is a huge Howard Stern guy. And so I listen to a lot of Howard Stern. I end up watching a lot of Beetlejuice clips because those are my husband's favorite.
The glory days, yes.
Yeah, exactly. The glory days. But it's like you're saying, it's interesting because when you have that relationship with someone, it makes it feel less intense. But then when you're not on the show and they're using inside jokes and playing a clip of you saying something, funny but wild, I could definitely see how that could, just feel very interesting.
It's interesting. Like I said, it's interesting after the show because you'll get comments from people or you'll read something about yourself. And that's the part that like kind of takes you out or like, you're like, whoa, or like, oh my God, I can't believe you said this. Or, that's the part. But when you're doing it, to me, it's so much fun. Because you really aren't ever prepared for what's going to happen. So, I mean, listen, will I get PTSD eventually from the show? Of course. Like I think that's
I'll be
entertainment.
Here to help Ryan when that happens.
That's entertainment. Yeah.
Right. No, but I mean, and I think too, what you're saying is like Jeff's love language is teasing and, making fun. And so, that's one of the things that I feel like I've noticed listening over the past couple of years. That's his love language. But it's really easy for people to hear a snippet and take something, outside of it. And then I'm sure they message you and then you're like, wait, what? So listen,
that's the world. I mean, that is the world that we live in. And you see that on every form of entertainment or even what we do. I'll take a piece of the Valley episode and I will make an hour episode out of something. And, I have a pretty good feeling that I'm usually right in my assumptions, but I might not be right. I might be reacting of such a way. And you always have to imagine. And as I get further into this, you're like, okay, if Sheena listens to this podcast and I've said something about Sheena and I've got it wrong, that is got to be a weird feeling, and these people, I mean, I don't consider them gladiators, but, it is a very interesting place that they've put themselves into. And yes, they do get paid for it, but it also still has to sting. And you have to really have a lot of scar tissue from doing this. Obviously Janet on this season of The Valley as well. I mean, the amount of things that are coming at her, and I understand why from what we get to see, but you're still going to get that feeling. And if you don't get that feeling, that would almost make me worry about you if you are not affected in some way.
Right, because I think that's just what it means to be human, right? Whether you're choosing to be on TV or a podcast or whatever it is, when someone's talking about you in ways that don't exactly align, I guarantee, for me, it's like I get this feeling in the pit of my stomach. And so I agree. I think it's, and the reason why I do what I do is because all these people we talk about, they're humans, right? We don't really know them at all. We're watching edited snippets of their life that they're choosing to put out there. But at the same time, I always try to come from a place of these people are human and, this is their job. I want to be as respectful as I can. Of course, we're going to be shady. Of course, it wouldn't be funny if we weren't. But I do think at the end of the day, like, we're all just human beings, just try to like get through this life. So, that's always the lens.
God bless you, because it's taken me a minute to get there, because I used to really, and still to this day, sometimes shoot from the hip, and I would go with my first emotion. But also, I was talking about this on my Patreon yesterday. We were talking about Scandival, and I had such a white, burning hot hatred at that time for that situation. But also, if 2+ years after that, I also realized I was going through a period of time where my mom was dying. I was around my mom all the time. I had known Tom and Ariana a little bit on the actual real world outside. And stupidly enough, I weirdly looked up to Tom Sandoval. And I know you might make fun of me for that, but I thought, here's a weird guy doing a weird thing, and I'm a weird guy doing a weird thing. And I really just didn't believe any of what was initially coming out. And then it was just, I was incensed. And would I do it differently today than I did 2 years ago? I really don't know. But it has given me somewhat pause, or time always gives you perspective on things. But that's the thing, is that we react to these things with our own personal experiences and what we're actually going through in our lives. There are so many times where I'm going through something so flipping painful that I can't fully tell the audience about. But you will definitely know that I am I use it as some sort of, just to get it, like an exorcism. I get it out of me. That was an unhinged recap. I'm like, I was going through something, I was really going through something. And this happened to be what I'm talking about. So it kind of filtered through that, or that's at least what I found afterwards.
Right. And here's the thing, but to give yourself some grace, because you've been doing this for a long time. I have not. So if I had been doing this for 6-7 years, I probably would have been and what you're talking about is projecting, right? That's what I like to talk about in terms of when fans or, all humans, we see things and then we project our feelings onto other people. It's just a part of being human. And so it's so funny that you bring that up, because I relate very much. There are some things that I go through in my personal life that, I give updates and stuff, but I don't, there's a lot I hold close to the vest, because my life can be really hard and wacky sometimes. And I will re-listen, or when I'm editing, I'm like, ooh, I call it like a sharp edge sometimes. I can get a real sharp edge, when I'm feeling grief or, struggling with mental health. And so I think that's just part of being human. Yeah. And growth means that, realizing, listen, you're still going to do that. I'm still going to do that. But it's just becoming more aware, I think, of ourselves and how we express that when we're having hard times. But I don't think it's anything anybody needs to apologize for. But I also think
I think, to your point, though, I think it's really just about like kind of the self-discovery. And it's not even something that the audience needs to self-discover with you, is that you're realizing these things in retrospect. I'm coming up on, I think, 6 years in October, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to check with Mediza. And so much has happened in those 6 years, so much life stuff has happened. And when you start this was never started even with the thought of making any sort of money or career out of this. It was just literally screaming into a void. And so when you start something with no design or no plan, and, to be able to work in this industry, as crazy as it is, I'm so thankful, but none of this was planned. So we don't really have a language in how to go through the ups and downs of these parasocial relationships. And I don't just mean the listener to the podcaster, but I mean the podcaster to these shows. To your point earlier, is that, I didn't really think of these as real people. I thought of these as characters on my favorite shows. And I will say, like, one of the big lessons is, like, don't become super friendly with these people. Don't chase that.
Well, Ryan, we've learned that real hard. Bish has learned that big time.
It's a double-edged sword. As excited as it is in the first place, it's something that can sometimes cost you your voice and how you actually feel about things. And it will give you pause. And I sometimes don't know if that makes the best listening experience or viewing experience for the audience, is when you're pulling how you actually feel because you know somebody or it's like I've just noticed that over the years as well.
Yeah. And let's be honest, I think that there are certain Bravo Lebs because, let's get into talking. Well, this is a good transition to Real Housewives of Orange County and what's been going on there. Our friend, the Bravo babe, Christina, had a relationship with Katie Janela. Katie got busted for it. She lied. The recent episode of Real Housewives of Orange County, Katie did admit that she did call Christina. But I think it's one of those really interesting parasocial situations where I think sometimes these people, I'm going to speak from my experience. I'm not going to speak on Christina's. In my experience, I feel there are some people who have contacted me in order to try to manipulate my voice or my perspective to be in their favor.
Yeah. For me, the good thing is I am so disorganized. I don't even see most of my DMs. So I'll see DMs like months, maybe years later. I was thinking about this. I was like, when was the last time I went through my DMs and like really answered one by one? And it was Thanksgiving 2021.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's like hit or miss if you'll even reach me. So that's like a positive. But also, I do a show that I'll talk about deeper things, but I also just try to be silly and try to like tickle my funny bone.
Right.
Whatever that's worth. And so it is interesting. Like you'll never find me in a DM trying to extract information from a cast member. I've left a few words of encouragement for people that I think need it. But you'll never also see me leave a really nasty comment on any Bravo Celebrities page. I don't have time for that. And also I am so sensitive that at the end of the day, that kind of stuff would keep me up at night. So it's interesting. You're in this world where they are reaching out and accepting fans' theories and comments and, kind of building these armies. And it's so far from what Housewives originally started as like 19 plus years ago. And I think this is the disappointing thing. In my recap for Orange County this week, I was like, it just shows the fallacy in this system is that these are casted ladies with no real friendships. And to Katie's point, in a way, I think she said something of like, well, I thought this is how you do it. I thought this is how, because in reality, a lot of these housewives do it. A lot of these housewives get information.
Argue most of them do it.
I'm trying to be nice, but I'm just saying.
I know.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, this is almost acceptable behavior. And it goes so far from interpersonal relationships between these ladies, because then it becomes literally some sort of fight for your life in like DM comments and podcasts, which I find sometimes the most uninteresting storylines of all time. But at the same time, it doesn't take away from the fact that Katie was flat out, straight up lying. And whether she felt that was playing the game, to me is yet to be seen. I met Katie one time at Jeff Lewis, and she was so sweet, so nice. And I really appreciated what we saw in the first season. So I don't know. It sounds like she's done this with a lot of people, but I also know a lot of those people have done that with multiple people. So like, are we going to mention it all? If this is a storyline, are we going to bring the rest of these people out into the light and talk about how this happens so commonly? And I wanted to not, I feel like it's the NFL. We should fine housewives when we find anything coming up on a podcast or any sort of DM.
And listen, Ryan, that's an interesting point, and maybe something that Bravo will have to shift to, because I agree with you when all this stuff about bloggers, which we're not bloggers, but whatever, that is like such an old 90s word that I'm like, okay.
It confuses me every time. Atlanta always does this too, like the blogs. I'm like, what blogs? Like Perez Hilton, like I remember reading like 20 years ago, what blogs are like of this power? Like, I'm like, seriously, can we... Like, and also, I want to change the name of podcast, too. I feel like podcast is getting a bad rap. Let's change that name as well. But the blogger thing confuses the hell out of me. Like, and content creator seems, I love that term, but it seems a little nouveau riche, I guess, in some ways. So there's got to be a good word. If we're going to make this storylines, the producers need to like say, hey, if we refer to these people, we say it as such.
Well, I don't think they care about us that much to even care about what they're calling us.
But they shouldn't. But listen, they shouldn't care about us. The fact that I have to be reminded that I exist watching one of my favorite franchises is ridiculous. I want to cease to exist when I watch these shows. I don't want to be reminded of the vortex that goes behind these shows. We already do these shows. I don't want to watch a show that I'm talking about of like, oh yeah, I think I remember that Instagram post, or, oh, I think I remember that Twitter fight. No, I want to see what's going on between you ladies and not just who dug up dirt this week on somebody to use against them in a future episode. Sorry to get so angry. It's early. Okay,
No,
I just
but
went,
listen,
sorry, guys.
I understand the frustration and I feel it too. And if Christina weren't my friend, because, in this space, there's not a lot of content creators I trust or whatever you want to call us. And so for me, it felt like it hit close to home. And it's like, I'm not going to necessarily say anything when it comes to myself. But if it's somebody that I care about, I was like, I just wanted people to realize how that might feel if someone you watch on TV is lying about you and talking about you. They have a huge platform. You do not. And so I just felt like there was like a real power differential there, which for me is why I learned a lot of lessons from this whole scenario. I no longer reach out to people. I no longer have relationships because I do feel that, and I'm kind of joking when I say this, but this is why nobody likes me, because I'm not a soldier to anyone.
What do you mean nobody likes you? I think you're very liked. You're very well respected.
Well, my peeps like.
Okay, now we're going to argue
me,
about who's liked less. I am disliked, Melissa. What are you talking about? You're very liked.
Hush your mouth, Ryan. No, listen, we're both liked, but I'm saying I've in terms of these parasocial relationships, I'm not going to be specific, but I've had people reach out to me. And then once it's clear that I'm not going to be a soldier for them, then they never talk to me again. And so for me, it's being a therapist and having these clinical experiences. It's not my first rodeo with people who may be manipulative or trying to use, right? Like that's what clients do all the time. So fortunately, I'm really adept to it. But it did really, being in the space, changed my view of the whole Bravo world.
Yeah. It gives you a bad taste. You get a bad taste in your mouth sometimes when you see how the sausage is made, even though as I get further into it, I want to know how the sausage is made. But also, are you willing to admit finally on this show is that you're the therapist that diagnosed Tamara as on the spectrum?
What? Right, I'll kill you.
You should see her face, you guys. You should see her.
I'll kill you, Ryan. Why are you starting that rumor?
Can we put that out there? Let's pull this clip. This is the clip, guys.
Well, but okay, so, and I guess I'll talk about, on Real Housewives of Orange County, her therapist did acknowledge that Tamara said that, but she shouldn't have said it because it does require a full comprehensive evaluation.
Yeah.
On the Real Housewives of Orange County.
We see in the same episode, Emily talking about a battery of tests that her son has to go through to actually be diagnosed. So we have Tamara being diagnosed in less than one therapy session, and then Emily's son going through a battery of tests, or Brittany on the Valley on the after show talking about how many therapists, how many tests it takes to actually be diagnosed. So it really truly is a slap in the face to hear Tamara. And what's so weird is with the Tamara thing, you sense there was like a sense of glee of like, guess what? I'm on the spectrum. Like, ta-da! Like I found, like there was an excitement about it, which this isn't necessarily an exciting thing. This is something you have to process. And there is a huge community of amazing people that have gone through this.
Right. And I think that it's invalidating to, I did some posts about this with Emily and with Brittany, is it really does take a village. It takes occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, in-person, caregiver, observational, like there's different testing. And any parent to someone on the ASD spectrum can tell you it is a very long process. I felt very vindicated when the therapist basically said, and I don't know if a lot of people caught this, what she was trying to say is that some symptoms of trauma can mimic symptoms from other diagnoses, but that doesn't mean you have the diagnosis. It just means that you're having some of these symptoms, right? I caught that. And then she kind of said to Tamara, so, you spoke a little bit too quickly because this really does take a lengthy, blah, blah, blah. But when I had posted about, people were like, of course, Bish, what do you think? What do you think about this? And when I posted about it, Tamara was angry and she said, now people aren't going to believe me. And I was like, that's a lot to put on me. That is a lot to put on Melissa, aka your Bish therapist. And listen, I'm not going to say exactly what we said. We had a little exchange and I said, listen, I'm always going to be the type of person, whether someone else is wrong or right, I never want to hurt someone. So she asked me to take down the post and I took it down because that's I have to live with my morals and values, right?
What if I asked you to put it back up? I mean, is that how it works? We just have to ask you?
No, I didn't want to, but then I was like, well, it's about her. And when it comes to this sort of stuff, I always want to proceed with caution. And so I did out of a place of respect. I didn't need to, but I think that all taught me a lot about I don't DM anymore. I don't reach out. I don't respond. There was someone from Southern Charm who sent something to me. I did not respond because I'm just like, I have bigger fish to fry, Ryan. You know what I mean? I have a chronic cancer, 7 million health issues. I'm just trying to stay alive here. And I don't need to be caught up in this bullshit. So
yeah. Was it Craig?
Listen. No, it wasn't Craig. I will say that it was not. No.
Okay.
No. So listen, let's get into some things because there was some breaking news today that you drew me towards that. So there's been a lot going on with Denise Richards and Aaron Phypers, who we now know there's a lot of stuff going on. And for people who don't know, I'm just going to outline a couple things. So Aaron Phypers, we found out, filed for divorce, I think about 2 weeks ago. And then last week, Denise Richards came forward and there was an article in People and I think Variety where Denise alleged very severe abuse. And I just want to give a really quick trigger warning right now for people listening to this. We're going to be talking about some domestic abuse and things like that. And so I care more about you than I do about my podcast. So if you need to fast forward, please do that now. So the reason why I want to bring this up is because obviously this is what I do. But I want to be really clear about something is that we support Denise. We support victims. We believe victims. And all of the stuff that Aaron is trying to put out there against Denise is the very stereotypical pattern of abuse. She's putting out the truth about him, which we believe love and support her and her children. And he's trying to deny the facts. Number one. Number two, I was telling Ryan before we went on that Aaron Phypers engaged in a cancer scam. So Aaron Phypers had this, it was quote unquote a wellness center called Quantum 360 Club.
Yeah, it was in Malibu.
Yes, and where all the great treatment centers are, right?
Yeah, I found that to be true, yes.
Yeah, on the beach, passages or promises or whatever it is,
Yeah.
Maybe that's where Jax went. I have no idea.
Oh, no, he couldn't afford that.
I know.
I'm joking.
They're so expensive. No, but they really are so expensive. You have to really have a lot of money to do this. And especially since Medicaid has been cut, that's a whole other thing that I don't want to get into. But most people receiving treatment, it's covered by Medicaid. And so now with this whole Medicaid mishigas, there are people that are going to die from preventable diseases. And I just makes me sick to my stomach. So I just wanted to put that out there. But this woman, her and her husband, went to Aaron Phypers. He claimed that he had a treatment for her cancer, which it was a stem cell treatment that he claimed would, quote, cure or at least ameliorate, quote, end quote, her condition. And that's just a fancy word for improve. Okay. And so Aaron Phypers claimed that the treatment had a 98% success rate, and he was confident that if it did not work, he would refund 50% of the money that they had paid to him for treatment. And by the way, we're talking about $126,000 for a woman who was literally dying of cancer, and this was her last hope, okay? So they go, they do the treatments. Guess what? Didn't work. She died.
What?
And
no.
Yep. And she spent her last week trying to email Aaron Phypers as she was dying from cancer to ask for her $63,000 back. Yeah, it just, honestly, I could cry. It's disgusting. So the email was ignored, but here's another really interesting part of this, Ryan, that you are not going to believe. So the husband of the woman who died, his name is Rupert Perry. He filed a lawsuit against Phypers in November 2024. However, Aaron Phypers has been completely a ghost. His Quantum 360 has been closed. Everything on Instagram, it's completely shut down. Nobody can find him, right? Well, guess what a judge allowed Rupert Perry to do? He allowed Rupert Perry to put an ad in the paper to notify Phypers that he was being sued, and he had 30 days to respond as a result. So this man placed
we're assuming that Aaron can read. That's like a long shot. I mean, geez.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, that is a big assumption. And, I don't think Aaron has much to offer anyone or anybody. And so, yeah, isn't that so fascinating? That to me, the reason why I continue to bring this up is because Aaron Phypers is not only asking for spousal support of Denise Richards, he's doing all these conning sort of things and then trying to say, well, her claims aren't true. And I'm here to say, bullshit, sir. Bullshit.
Well, I feel like ABC News has another hustler and the housewife on its hands. I feel like ABC News will be digging into the Aaron Denise story any day because they had the Randall scandal. I'm just thinking ahead, like PR-wise, how you would hop on this. But yeah, I went through some of those court documents in his request for alimony, and what he had put as his monthly expenses it was insane. I mean, it was just the thousands on clothing. I was like, I'm wearing the same Old Navy for like the last 2 years. I mean, this guy's like buying thousands of dollars, but like how many leather jackets can you own on top of entertainment expenses, food expenses? And it was over $100,000 a month. And I was like, this is bizarre. So that was the first shot fired on this. And he was the one that filed. And then this week, obviously, Denise released those photos. And then Aaron tried to go on the defense on TMZ doing an interview and then released a letter that was meant for Denise's family, but somehow got leaked to Page Six, saying that she has a Vicodin addiction, all of this stuff, which I think is pattern kind of retribution from abusers. So, but on top of that, to your initial point, it's really hard. I mean, if you're dealing with somebody's life, I mean, obviously, even if we don't believe in it, I think you would have to prove, obviously, does Aaron actually believe in the shit that he's selling? Does he really believe this stuff can cure cancer? Or does he know? You'd have to prove that he knows that this is smoke and mirrors. I posted a clip on my Instagram, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, because I always, I remember that season with Denise and Aaron, and they were at that dinner party over at Kyle's, and he had a whole monologue that people seem to have forgotten, where that's when I was like, whoa, this guy's insane. Where he was like, cancer's your best friend. Cancer's your best friend trying to kill a virus until it tries to kill you. And everybody is looking around the table like, what the hell? And Mauricio's like, no, I totally get it. I'm following along completely. And Lisa Rinna says some batshit crazy thing about Harry Hamlin. He's like, Harry's in nuclear fission for the last 30 years, and this doesn't sound right. And I was like, wait a sec, Harry Hamlin's been in a nuclear fusion for 30 years? That's crazy, but we're dealing with this crazy right now. And I think it's so interesting when we're presented with these characters. We also had the crushing hand scene that has been played a lot this past week, is that we're almost kind of, and maybe Jax has changed this on the Valley for us somewhat. Once it gets to TV, I think we are working under the guise of, well, if they're on TV, they must not truly be bad. It must be somewhat okay, because they wouldn't put a full-on abuser. And I know if you're listening, you're rolling your eyes and laughing, because we've had many abusers, starting with Russell on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills way back in the day. But go under the guise of well, no, everybody's safe, right? He's just kind of cuckoo. He's just he believes in different things than I do. And then all these years later, you're like, it's the same thing. We always have these gut feelings. I had a gut feeling about Tom Girardi. I was like, lawyers make a lot of money, but do they make that much money?
Right. And, with Tom Girardi, the way he talked to Erica as well, here's the funny thing. So all of this, that whole season happened before I was covering this. Otherwise, I would have really went into this. But I think that there's a lot of men featured on these shows that are very controlling. And Tom Girardi was one of those people with how I wouldn't speak to a dog the way he spoke to Erica. And it's I don't care how much money you have or how great you think you are. How we treat people says something about our character. And, to be clear, the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills scene, which that we're talking about. So Denise and Aaron were leaving the barbecue hand in hand following that very weird discussion, which, by the way, anyone who tries to say shit about cancer being helpful or good can literally fuck off, if I'm being real. I'm a 2-time cancer survivor. And Erin is one of those people who there is this lane of holistic healing, which is also known as gaslighting bullshit, where, oh, well, if you have lemons, that'll cure cancer. And it's like, well, do you understand no one would have cancer then if lemon was a cure for cancer? If this thing was a cure, right? It's like, so I personally believe that Erin, this is my belief, allegedly, Denise was a mark for him. Because Denise, in my opinion, has a history of being in unhealthy, toxic relationships that she does not deserve with, Charlie Sheen and then Erin. And I think he knew what he could get away with. And I think he saw her as a meal ticket, allegedly. That's my view.
I do wonder, though, to that point, though, do they really... Like, I think they think I'll have a good life. But I always wonder, when these people are... you call them like a mark. How thought out is it? Because at the same time, it's Denise Richards. A very beautiful woman, successful, famous. Is that a mark, or is that just like, hey, that's Denise Richards? Like, most guys potentially would want to be involved with Denise Richards. At the same time, you are having that thought of, well, the rest of my life is going to be pretty good. The reality of that situation has turned out not to be the case. But I just sometimes wonder how thought out it is with these men. And then the other thing that fascinates me is, and this speaks to the ego of not just the men on Housewives, but the women on Housewives. If your house is not in order, it's always the people whose houses are not in order that run to be on reality television, thinking that they can fool the cameras, that nothing to see here, everything's great. And so it's an interesting viewing experience. And I think that's why the audience parasocially gets so amped up, is because we sense the truth, but we never see the full truth. And then the full truth comes out in all of these other forums. And you're like, well, why didn't we talk about this on the show? Or even with the Jax in the last scene of The Valley this week, him coming into Brittany and trying to be all calm, even though he's on a speakerphone phone call where he was like, give me your ring code, Brittany, give me it. They think they can control this narrative in some way. And so it's almost like this 1-2 punch of the show. And then the 360 experience that happens online and in Reddit forums. And I think that is a very bizarre experience for the viewer, and especially the viewers that don't mess around on social media. Like, they got to be really shocked when news like this comes out.
Well, of course. And I think my perspective is that these women like Taylor and Denise, I think they do it to keep themselves safe, because a lot of people who are in domestic violence situations, they're going to do anything they can to try to get eyes on them, to try to keep themselves safe. For example, I thought Kelly on Real Housewives of Atlanta, she had some really difficult situations with her ex. And sometimes people can, her like really friendly, bubbly persona can be a way to draw people in to protect her. Because if there's eyes on you and you have friends and you have people around you, that can be a protective factor.
Would you say the same thing about Brittany Cartwright on The Valley? Because I always say in my recaps, I'm like, God, she really is making abuse seem almost fun. She's always like, she laughs it off so quickly, this insane behavior, so much so that it makes us be like, well, if she's okay with it. But I think the Brittany, how she reacts to Jax, and I will say too, I'm very team Brittany. To her credit, she is bringing this stuff to light. She is the one that called the producers in the very beginning that set this season off in a very different direction than that they were planning on doing. And she also called him out on that last scene. Like, are you on Vicodin? Are you on Xanax right now? She calls that out because do you think, in your opinion, speculatively, that she's doing that to get it on record and to surround herself with people that can protect her?
Yes. And I think that the reason why she makes it, you made a statement there, it makes it seem normal or fun because that's been her normal. So when you talk to anyone going through a domestic violence situation, I've had the honor and the pleasure of helping many people throughout my career, they have to normalize it because it's what they live with. And mentally, if you don't normalize this and you're not saying it's okay, you are living in pure hell. But what Brittany she got to a point where she woke up and it's like a fog they come out of and they say, wait a second. I think if it were not for Cruz, Brittany never would have come out of that fog. Never. And it is a lot of times you'll see with people in domestic violence relationships, they will have a child or someone's brought in, and that helps them see clearer. Because unfortunately, when we're living in those situations, we don't have the self-esteem or self-worth to believe that we deserve better, right? So we normalize it. We say, this is okay. This is fine for me. But then you have this beautiful little gift of a child and you think, wait a second, this is not okay for them. And that breaks what's called cognitive dissonance, which is the piece that blocks us out from being able to say, like, to see the reality of the situation. That's kind of what it's called. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I mean, in the last scene, Brittany says, nails him with this line of like, I don't want Cruz to grow up to be like you, and you shouldn't want that either. And I thought she nailed it. As hurtful as that is exactly it, is that we are raising a son already going through struggles in terms of trying to deal with the outside world. And we need to have united force to make sure he has the best life possible and the best tools at his disposal. And you are impeding that process. And, with the Jax of it all is very interesting because you then go into the after show, which you always get so much more clarity and context on every situation. And Jax is always like, no, yeah, it's everything for him. We're all, just everything for Cruz. And I'm like, you're literally fighting her on medical bills. It's not everything for Cruz. He always knows the right things to say. And so if I didn't watch, if I hadn't studied, if I didn't go to the University of Jax Taylor for the last 13 years, I would be like, well, this guy has his shit together. I really like what this guy's saying. But then you see it's never backed up with actions. And in the same breath, he will undercut his previous statement. And I'm not saying I do not have empathy or hope for Jax. I'm just saying it got so dark this season and so real. And it's a reality that we already have all these other 6 stories of reality happening on this show. This one is the one that's going to keep me up at night. And this one, and you almost barter with yourself, Melissa, is that when he got fired, I was speculating about that for weeks. And I was almost bartering with myself of like, well, I think they should keep him in a friend of just so they can keep him honest and Brittany can be protected with the camera. Like I was literally going through these somersaults and hula hoops to like make sure it could work out. And in reality, they made the right decision. He needs to be put on ice for a while. And it's really up to him if he wants to continue this journey that he says he's on. And hopefully he can use, like Sophie, my co-host on Monday, was just like, no, he's never going to learn. No, he's done. He's done. Da, 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 da. I don't know. I still want to live in a world where I have some small piece of hope. But at the same time, all the positive attention needs to go on Brittany.
Right. And I think it's wonderful to have empathy for people, but I honestly, the one person who I have no empathy for is Jax Taylor. And I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah, tell me why.
I've worked with Jax Taylor's and he's really good at saying the words, right? And so I know that he's a manipulator based on the fact that continued apology without changed behavior is nothing but manipulation. And that's all he's been doing on his time on TV. It's about Cruz. Well, you threw a table into Brittany's leg while he was in the other room. And, he's having a challenging time processing things, period. And so how do you think that's impacting his development? So I could name a million scenarios.
Can I ask you a question? This is always something that I've asked on the show that I don't know is that, an act of manipulation and stuff like that. So these abusers or these people that are doing these things, how aware in their head are they that they are doing something wrong? Or is this purely just the id? This is instinct. It's id. I'm not actually thinking I want to destroy this person. It's all just coming out and there is not actually a plan to it. And that's why I think Jax at its core, and he's a broken person. This is something that we always talk about the chemistry of the mind. And these are very real things. I'm on SSRIs and I'm on, I have to do a bunch of things to actually get through the day. And it sucks to do all these things to just get a baseline level. How aware is he that this behavior is wrong? Because you would think in a mental health facility, first off, we could argue about having the phone and all that stuff. But if you're allegedly going through hours and hours of therapy and then to run and start rage texting somebody, you would think there would be a cognizant realization of like, whoa, this is what they're talking about in group right now. I'm doing all of the wrong things. How cognizant are these men, or anybody, it can be women, I'm sure as well. How cognizant are they of their behavior?
Very. I'm going to be honest, very. I hear your point and I understand the question, because there are times where people, when we're wounded, right? A regular person who's not on any sort of spectrum of a personality disorder, let's say. We don't have that. So for a regular person, we do act out of being wounded and out of being hurt. And we do things that come out sideways, and we don't necessarily mean to do that. Jax and Aaron Phypers, to me, are completely different story. These two are people who I believe know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what their goal is. They're good at pretending that it isn't. But I've just dealt with too many. So I'm going to tell you something. In my career, I worked in inpatient rehab, and my population that I worked with was antisocial men. Because, Joy, that was me. I was the antisocial male whisperer, okay? Because I grew up with an antisocial man. So, listen, I'm very good at it. But what I can tell you is that it's not something that I can say, here's proof of it, or here's, this is my belief from my clinical experience that Jax and Aaron are two people who know exactly what they're doing, and they're not going to change, if ever, unless they are motivated and ready to do so. And
Melissa,
yes.
All this is so amazing, but that is why I believe the statement was so open-ended with Jax, because I think, he didn't choose to step away. I think it was like, we're not renewing your contract, but it was open-ended. It wasn't a period, like he will no longer be on our screens. I believe they positioned it to him as, keep your nose clean, literally and figuratively, keep it clean, and we will revisit this at another point. Now, do I think that they think they'll have Jax back on TV? No, but I think they told him that to give him something, some sort of thing to hang his hat on, to try to incentivize him to continue this work. Because even if we all dislike Jax, you have to realize these people have been with him. A lot of these people, even working on the Valley, have been with him since day one on Vanderpump Rules.
Sure.
Whether we dislike him or not, it's the same with Sandoval. I was trying to explain, these people really care about these people, even if they have done something so insanely wrong. And I think sometimes people forget, like, they've dealt with this person for 13 years, and we've dealt with alcoholic family members that are going through mental crises. You don't just go F that person and never talk to them again. Like it's a long road.
Sure. And listen, to your point, Tom Sandoval and Jax deserve to have support. It's just not going to be from me. They deserve to have friends. They deserve to have loved ones. They deserve to have support. And I agree with you that some of these producers, it does become like family. When you work with people on a show. But
it's got to be so tricky, I would imagine.
Well, sure. I do. But I think that those people sometimes are too close to it too, because, when you love someone and you care about them, you don't want to believe, like, I think, Ryan, what you're struggling with is like, you don't want to believe that someone we've watched on TV for so long could be such a manipulative, abusive person.
Do you remember like the first season of Vanderpump Rules? Obviously, at the end, he goes into Stassi, who he's gaslit the entire crew and all this, like, no, I didn't cheat. I didn't get anybody pregnant. Yeah. And then he walks in with flowers and tells Stassi everything's true, right? And Stassi has this kind of this mental breakdown. And there was like a making of that season and how Vanderpump Rules came. I think that they put it on like the 4th or the 5th season. I remember this. And it was like a making of. And Jeremiah, who's now a producer on The Valley, he was just working, as one of the production crew. He wasn't a producer. But he worked. And he said, we all believed Jax. We all believed him the entire season. So when that happened, we were all shocked. He lied to all of us. And I think that was so interesting, was that he manipulated the entire crew. And that just didn't start in 2013. That started way before this show came to fruition.
Exactly. And if he's able to do that with people who are filming him, what was it like with Brittany, right? I mean, this is just a person who, there's, I look at things clinically speaking on a spectrum, on a continuum. And when you get past a certain point on the continuum, there are these personality styles and characteristics that are really rigid and really problematic. And I have not seen Jax want to change of his own volition. And if I'm being honest, I think Bravo Lebs have been fired for less. And the fact that Bravo co-signed this bullshit of letting him do this whole announcement. And let me read it, by the way. After an incredibly challenging year and many honest conversations, honest, my ass, with my team and producers, I'll be stepping away from the next season of The Valley. Right now, my focus needs to be on my sobriety, my mental health, and co-parenting. Taking this time is necessary for me to become my best version of myself, especially for our son, Cruz. I don't know that Jax believes that. I think that's what people are telling Jax.
Of course not. None of that. No.
Right.
I mean, this is literally. It's like when they all nobody forced him into this mental health rehab center, but they all got together and said, "You have to go." Like, this is his management. This isn't like everybody was like, "This, you have to do this." Like, that you have to do this, but we can't tell you have to do this. You just have to do this. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And I always point out on my show, remember, this is the first of 2 rehabs. After cameras went down at the end of September, I believe, there was another blow up with Brittany, and I think Cruz was there as well. And Jax had to go back to the mental health rehab center for a second time, only stayed 17 days. And allegedly that is the clock starting on his sobriety, which he still says he is sober and allegedly gets tested. Brittany can test him at any time. But remember, when the cameras went down, there was a whole, he raged. I was told in the reunion that second time gets brought up, but then I was told it might be edited out. So I don't know if we're going to see that conversation, because at this point, I don't know. I just don't know, But I think something bad happened that second time as well.
And here's my frustration, right? As an advocate for all people in domestic violence situations, why on earth are we whitewashing the situation? Why are we editing the situation? You have the balls to put this man on TV, have the balls to do the real work with domestic violence survivors and put some slides up and address it, and not just sweep it under the rug. That's what makes me crazy.
Why do they always put it at the back of at the end of the show? They'll put up like a suicide hotline or something. Why don't they do that?
Right.
I don't understand why they don't. I can handle that at the front of the show. It gives you a nice warning. Have it at the front and the back. I don't know why they always do it at the end.
I'll tell you why, Ryan, because God, I'm feeling spicy today. Because they don't want people to not watch. Like what I just said about people listening to this who I guarantee have tuned out because of domestic violence situations. I care more about them.
Guys, come back.
No. But I'm saying when you give someone a trigger warning, you give trauma survivors the right to make their best decision about the content they want to take in. I don't think they want to really give people the decision. They want to cover their ass at the end. Because if it was really about giving people the choice, which, by the way, trauma survivors, they do appreciate the trigger warning. If they cared about that, it would be at the beginning. So I just think that I don't like the systemic thing that's happening here with Jax, Aaron being able to put out the story about Denise. Because let me be clear. If Denise had an addiction, if she cheated 1,000 times, that does not give anyone the right to put your hands on somebody in any way, shape, or form. And
Obviously.
This is a tactic to try to besmirch her name, because he knows, guess what? Men know, if they just put something out about women, there will be a population of Bravo people who will be on his side, because there are plenty of people who are happy.
Oh, I would say 30%. I would say 30%, even still to this day, with all the information that we have, still is like, how dare Brittany take this job away from Jax? How dare her? It's classic woman. I'm reading this book called Hollywood Vampires right now about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial and everything that led up to that. It's a really fascinating read. And it reminded me of all these things that I had forgotten about, leading up to not just the first trial, but the second trial, obviously. And it's wild, there's a lot of wild behavior that had happened between these two, but it also just shows how the public reacts. And especially if there's any sort of Johnny Depp, obviously an insanely huge star. Jax Taylor is a low level star a big star for a very small fragment of the population, us people that watch all of this stuff. the world at large is not super aware of Jax Taylor, but they were Johnny Depp. And that power differential is like this vacuum that people can't see past Pirates of the Caribbean to realize that this man was an active drug addiction, that there was violence on both sides. I mean, that has been admitted, and there's been tapes to show that happening. But it all had to be like, no, this is Amber. This is the floozy that is going for this man's money, you know, and this, and this, and this. And they just couldn't ever imagine that Jack Sparrow would ever do something untoward or even abuse his body in the ways he was with the amount of drugs he was on.
And I mean, look at the Diddy stuff. I haven't even discussed
the people
it because
celebrating outside of the courthouse
sickens me. It physically sickens me. This is why victims don't come forward, and this is how perpetrators continue to win. Is they know that all they have to do when it comes to a woman is slut shame her, say she's an addict, say this, and there will be a portion of the population who will be happy to carry their torches and continue to perpetuate that abuse. So men use the system to continue to perpetuate cycles of abuse on women. Case in point is whatever, blowback Denise Richards is going to get. This woman just bravely told her story, released these pictures, which are horrific, and she's going to get hate right now because of what Aaron's saying. And that literally sickens me. Brittany should not be getting any hate. You know who got Jax fired? Jax Taylor got Jax fired.
Yeah.
Jason Couchie got Jason Couchie fired, and she just was the one who finally said, I am not keeping your secrets anymore. Secrets keep us sick, and I'm not doing this for you anymore. And she had enough.
And that's why the fight in the second episode, when he's like, very specifically saying, I blame you for taking my dream away from me. And his dream, sadly enough, is to be on another reality show. But he legitimately said that sentence. And that was what kept me up at night talking about once we, is he going to be fired? Isn't he? Is that you can see him saying the same damn thing of like, look what you did now. You ruined it. You ruined my whole life. And what he said in this last episode of like, why do you want to take down the father of your son? Why do you want, like, those were the specific words, which you're like, oh my God, I know exactly the TikTok feed he's scrolling through to use that kind of language of, like the men, like men are so abused. And I'm not saying men have not encountered abuse. I'm not saying that, but
of course.
The way to make themselves victims on behaviors that they started and instituted is really disarming. It really shows like, well, are you just going to men's group where you lay hands on each other's chests? Or are you actually doing intense therapy to actually help you realize the error of your ways to try to reprogram some sort of brainwave activity that has been broken for so long?
Right. And that's the thing. It's like, listen, no one goes into treatment the first time saying, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, let's get this done, right? Like, no one is excited really the first time. But you can just tell, when you're really doing therapy, you don't have time to rage text people. Like, I was someone who worked in an inpatient setting, and, obviously they didn't have their phones, blah, blah, blah. That's a whole different story. But they had no time to focus on other stuff because it was group therapy. It was individual therapy. It was AA, classes and working on the steps and all of this other stuff. He can say what he wants, but I am too adept to be fooled. And so that's why I'm glad I have a platform to advocate for people watching this, because there are people who are triggered. Like, literally, we shouldn't be triggered watching reality TV. And the one thing I'll say is I called for weeks for Jax to be fired on my podcast. And I said that, if he did come back, I absolutely would not watch. I absolutely wouldn't, because I believe wholeheartedly that Brittany can tell her story without Jax being there, and she's earned the right to do that. We don't need him here for her to do that, in my opinion.
I completely agree. I just wonder in season 3, because I think he will still be spoken about because he still is a part of Brittany's story. And I think people are going to be curious, like, listen, he was in rehab rage texting, so it felt like Jax was on the cast anyways. Are we also agreeing with this that we will not be mentioning him on the show? Like, how far does this go? Are we pretending Jax exists in this universe? If Brittany's having a hard time where Jax did explode on her or Cruz, is that going to be talked about on the show? Or is it like, do we forget this part of her life exists and we move on and we see a scenario where she's, Brittany, I'm dating. Woo! shot. Like, or what are we seeing next season with, like, obviously it's not a redemption season because she has nothing to redeem herself from.
Mm-mm.
But are we seeing a story of triumph, a story of love? Like, as a producer, that's what I would try to be formulated, because I know they start shooting in a couple of weeks.
Right.
How do, in your opinion, do they talk about him next season?
Honestly, in my opinion, personally, I would love not to see Jax talked about at all. I would love for this to be Brittany's freedom season, because she's never been able to have this without him. And so I advocate for her to have this without him. Now, how would they go about that? That's a great question, because, I'm sure Jesse's going to want to make sure his buddy Jax is still in the limelight and, all this other stuff. But in my opinion,
Jesse's a businessman. Jesse, I think when it comes to this opportunity, he's a company man. And I think he will not be, I think he now realizes how tenuous this is and people can lose their jobs.
I hope so, because I think that this needs to set a precedent with people on Bravo that you cannot be abusive. You cannot display egregiously abusive behaviors and still get to keep your job. That's what makes me crazy. There have been people.
Love Island will get rid of you in a day. And it takes Bravo 13 years. And by the way, because I'm very confused on this, because the reality of this is there are traumatic situations that we, the audience, have been gripped by, tuned in for. And I'm not saying the Brittany Jax situation, but it's all personal drama and trauma. Yes, there are fun moments, but these shows, I think, obviously in retrospect, we'll be like, oh, the Roni girls, it was so fun watching them interplay off each other. But that was still off personal drama and trauma. So where is that line? Because if we are going by trying to behave of a certain standard, I don't know if Bravo would be able to have any programming. We'd have to go back to Inside the Actors Studios and Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. We'd have to go back to 1999 Bravo. So that is, as we are more aware because of social media of all of our behaviors, and there is this vacuum of rage that we see on a hourly, if not minute to minute basis. How do you, as a network, go forward and try to do what's right, but also do stuff that actually is like a live soap opera? But also a soap opera. That's what these are, soap operas, and also selling to advertisers. Scandival was the biggest thing that had happened to Bravo in years, and they were able to charge higher advertising rates because of it. And I always tell my audience, don't be fooled. This exists just to sell soap. They don't care about they care about advertisers and being able to sell advertising at upfronts at a very high rate for 30-second spots. That's all it is, And so where do they go from here as a network?
I mean, I definitely think that there's just something to, you can never go back to what Housewives used to be, right? It's been almost 20 years. And it's like, with a medication, for example, sometimes you need more and more of the substance to feel the same effects. And I feel that's what we're talking about here on reality TV. It's like more and more drama, more and more trauma to feel those entertaining effects. And so, which is why I'm glad that I'm here to be able to make something good of it. But I think for me, where we draw the line is just abuse, right? There's trauma and there's drama and there's, chaos and there's getting fans involved and all of that. But for me, when abuse comes in, to me, that's a real hard line.
Hard line.
For me. But maybe I'm making this too simplistic or,
No. I mean, but
I don't know.
Remember, you're also then opening the gate like DJ James Kennedy, right? Or James Kennedy is, allegedly, and we saw, the Kristen slapping him at the Sheena wedding episode. If you remember, what was it, season 3 or 4 of Vanderpump Rules? And, but allegedly that James hit Dodie, like James was abusive to Dodie,
Yep.
And obviously this didn't, it's just weird. There's been a lot of behavior over the years with a lot of shows that have been able to slide by.
Yes.
And, is this the reckoning or just,
I hope
like,
so.
okay.
For me, I hope so. And the one thing that I want to use my small platform for is to let people know that there's a way to ethically consume reality TV. And I know that sounds insane.
Like a blindfold?
Right?
Is that what you mean? Like watching with a blindfold? So you just hear it, don't see it? Is that it?
Right. No, but I mean, I think that for me, like James Kennedy, he's dead to me. He's done to me.
Yeah. Once the Tate brothers and all that, so I was like, okay, I got it. I get what's going on.
We're done with him. But I think that for me, if the James Kennedy stuff and the Aaron Pfeiffer stuff and the Jax stuff, if one good thing can come out of it, which is helping people understand that this is not going to fly with fans anymore. Like, we're not going to tolerate this because what they care about, like you said, is money, bottom line, right? There's no ethical corporations, and Bravo's no different, meaning it's about money and advertising and financing and all this other stuff. And so ultimately what they're going to listen to is if views are down and if, they're making less money and things like that. And so do I think they're doing it to send a message? Not really. I think they're doing it to kind of cover their own asses. But I don't give a shit why people do it, as long as we are starting to set a precedent that this is no longer acceptable. I just wanted to go back. I wanted to go back to the Denise Richards piece really quick because I wanted to remind people what Aaron said to her. They were leaving hand in hand, and Denise warned him, baby, don't say a fucking word. We're on camera. Okay. So he knows he's on camera. He knows that he's mic'd. And then he replies, don't tell me what to say. I'm going to crush your fucking hand. Okay. And here's one thing I want to be really clear of. When I saw this, I wasn't doing the podcast, but if I had been, here's what I would have said. If someone is going to say that on camera, when they know that they're mic'd, what do you think they're doing when nobody's there?
Yeah. And then but it's so funny. I remember one of the big takeaways of that season was Aaron has a huge dong. Like, that's what we did. Like, he's got a huge dong in those tight jeans. Like, that was the thing that I heard over and over again, instead of focusing on like, oh yeah, but he also was going to crush Denise's hand at one point. We can be distracted very easily.
Right. And, people did bring it up. Garcelle brought it up. Andy brought it up at the reunion. But, Denise did what all people do in those situations, which is try to placate, try to deny, because she has to go home to this man. Right. And I think Denise's whole thing about how big his penis is was, I think Aaron, like most people who are abusive, allegedly, although we believe Denise, but I'm just covering my ass, I guess, is that it's all about power and control. And I think that he wanted her to make him seem like a quote unquote big guy in more ways than one, because I think guys like that, they really need to feel some sense of, manliness or importance. Meanwhile, they're behaving in such ways that are just the opposite of what it means to truly be a man and a spouse and a partner. But I think that, to me, that was Denise trying to placate him, even though it may be true, to try to help, boost his ego and keep herself safe.
Yeah. No, I would, that makes a lot of sense. So we can agree that he has a small dong.
Well, metaphorically, he sure does, because any person who treats a woman like that has a micro penis in my book, honey.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't care how big it is in real life. You treat somebody like that, you are a piece of human garbage. And that's what I have to say about that. But here's what I want to say to people listening to this who are survivors, who are thrivers. Please know, nobody ever has the right to put their hands on you. Never, ever, ever. That is a deal breaker. There is no coming back from that. There is no recovering from that. That is it. And I want people to know who are listening to this, you deserve better. You don't deserve that. You deserve love, and abuse is not love. And the other thing I want to put out is some resources. You can text BEGIN, BEGIN, to 88788. And if you're concerned about digital security, because they have a website, it's called the hotline.org. And there's a big red X at the top where if someone's coming, you can just click it out. But if you're worried about your digital security, you can also call 800-799-7233. I know I have a lot of survivors and thrivers that listen to this, and I just want people to know that you don't deserve that. That is not love. And we've done a lot of talking about it. So I just want to be responsible and also encourage people to seek out some resources because we deserve
we haven't defunded that hotline yet.
Oh, don't even get me started on that, Ryan. I might rage and get myself in a lot of trouble. No, they haven't defunded that. They've just defunded any sort of LGBTQ plus suicide hotline information. And they also have defunded for veterans. For veterans, the people who have fought for our freedom.
My dad fought in Vietnam, and it is interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's what a wild world right now.
He compromised his health and mental health and his wellness to fight for our country. And now we can't even give veterans the support they deserve. So, what a world we live in, right, y'all?
Truly.
All right.
Truly.
So let's just spend a little bit talking about Next Gen New York City. First of all, Ryan, I want to ask you, I feel like Next Gen New York City is actually legitimately great. What are you thinking about it?
I think it's really good. I think it's like something to build off of. I mean, I think it's solid. I wouldn't say like, oh my God, it's the bee's knees, but it's really good. It like has worked its magic on me, and it's very low level, but talking about abusive men, I think Charlie's right there of like, you got to watch, like he's fighting over like a speaker with Georgia and then calling her a bitch when he doesn't get his way. And it's like a petulant child.
And threatening to slap her.
Yeah, but that didn't get enough love. So this is the kind of like young abuse that you really have to watch out for. But I think it will definitely get a second season. I think even in the ways that it doesn't work, it works. I was talking about this on today's show, is that Brooks isn't very dynamic on television, but the editors and producers work overtime to find ways to make him entertaining. Like they'll put like Meredith in a thought bubble of like, disengage. And like, so they'll like actually use his silence and try to find a way to like spice it up. So I even like those things, because I don't think he pops on screen. I think he seems like a really nice guy, kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it. I mean, I think I'm excited to see where it goes next. Of course, yes.
I don't know what your thoughts are about this, but I think this season of Next Gen New York City was better than RHONY last season. I think it's better, personally.
Well, it's tinier in the amount of episodes. It's something new that we have not fully seen. It's like, I always think it's like Muppet Babies with the Summer House cast. It's like, if you think of it as like an origin, like it's like little Muppet Babies. We got like little Kyles and Carls running around the city. I always listen, and it's fun to watch young people. It's fun to watch young people, especially as an older person, because you get to like really judge the hell out of them. You're like, oh, you idiots. I was there once. Oh my God. Can't believe it.
I know.
Yeah.
But it's for me, what's fascinating about this, because you and I have both been people, we've watched every season, every Real Housewife franchise since day one. And Ariana Bierman and Riley Burris, we watched them on the show when they were literally 5 years old. They were babies. They did flashbacks, and I was like, they were the squishiest, cutest little love bugs I've ever seen. And you just forget how little they were. And now they're grown up. And here's what I love about the show is that, Kim and Candy had a falling out because Kim just loves to take money that isn't hers, whether it's her daughter or Candy Burris, she doesn't give a shit. So I think that it's wild is that, we're seeing Kim's behavior, speaking of really egregious behaviors, we're seeing these patterns of things that it's pretty wild to me. But I just love that Ariana and Riley are legitimately best friends. They went on Watch What Happens Live and they talked about they sincerely are best friends. They hang out every day. And I just think that just makes my heart so happy. It just
it's really nice. And it's really interesting, like, to see how they've grown up. And I think Ariana, especially to be able to like, with the way her mom has moved through the world and to see like she does seem somewhat adjusted, which is very nice and refreshing to see, especially when you're in this kind of forum, which her mom has been a part of, and all of the things that Kim has done through the years. Candy, on the other hand, I mean, Candy to me is an icon, and she's going to be an EGOT winner eventually at some point. I mean, she's like
for sure,
producing some of the best shows on Broadway, and like somebody that truly does not need Atlanta at all, but it's so great that we get to claim her as somebody that started on Bravo in some ways, even though she was obviously huge in music beforehand.
Well, of course, and she's winning the what's that award?
The second annual. What was it? I just talked about it on the show
Housewives.
Because Vicky won it the first time.
Yeah, it's something like she's like the.
Yeah,
I know we're stuttering. I can't remember what the hell it's called.
No, I got it. It's the. The Bravo Lifetime Achievement Award.
Thank you, Ryan. The Lifetime Achievement, which if anyone deserves it, it is for sure Candy. I mean, like you said, she is just. I just love everything about her. And to be honest, I miss her on Atlanta. I mean, that show, she's one of those people who just makes everything she's in better. And so, of course, her daughter is like amazing because I think Candy and Cynthia are actually my number 2 all-time favorite housewives. But what I wanted to bring up is that, so Ariana is dating Hudson, whose dad owns Zaxby's Chicken, which I never heard of. Yeah, he's like a billionaire, but I'm like, I've never heard of that, but I've never, I'm not from the South, so I don't know, maybe that's why. But so what's really interesting is that Ariana, for people who aren't watching it, she is still paying Kim's bills. Kim asks her for money. Not only that, but Ariana and Brielle, they both found out like a year ago that all the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they made from being an influencer, Kim and Kroy took it without their consent, spent it, and left them completely high and dry. And on this one of the episodes, which was so interesting, is Ariana continues to say, my mom is my best friend. Okay. And I was having a really hard time with this. But I think the reason for this is that Ariana doesn't have a relationship with her biological dad. And when she was on Watch What Happens Live, she talked about her and Kroy are also not doing well because she feels very wronged by him as well, which she should, right? He participated in taking her money, as did Kim. It wasn't just Kim. And I think that it's, Kim is basically using Ariana for these issues, and it's causing problems in her relationship with Hudson. And I just think that, it's financial abuse,
because Hudson
right?
can see it clearly. Hudson can see it clearly.
Right.
Hudson doesn't have, Hudson has the there's something with family relations. There is, there's DNA. There's like you just don't see clearly a lot of the times. Other people can see it way more clear than you. And, you're going by these, mother, father roles that are so ingrained in us, but also just the amount that we've seen even talked about on TV of like what she would spend on gambling, crystals, all the BS, even still having expensive bottles of wine. If I'm loaning you money, I better not see you bragging about an expensive bottle of wine unless I'm providing it for you. It's just insane. Yep. It's rude. It's disrespectful, and it's gross. And it's not going to go the way. I don't know who Kim is trying to impress at this point, because it's like Jax, not in terms of abuse, but in terms of like, we've known her so long and there's so much documentation that this is not going to go well for you. And we're going to see it clearer and clearer through the eyes of your children.
Right. And I think what's so sad is that because Ariana doesn't have a relationship with her biological dad, she's not close with Kroy, she cannot afford to be upset with her mom. That's your only parent that you really have. And what I want to say is that even a shitty parent is still a parent. So I've seen kids who have been subject to horrific abuse. They don't stop loving their parents. They stop loving themselves. And so I think that Ariana, unfortunately, she can't afford to have healthy boundaries with her mom because that's her only parent. And I think she's not even aware of the position that puts her in. But it makes me very sad because it lets Kim completely take advantage over and over. And in this one episode, it was so interesting because Ariana and Hudson, they moved into this apartment in New York City. It's beautiful. Ariana was talking about her success. And you know what Kim did? First thing she did, she interrupted Ariana to ask for more wine. she said, Hudson, you poured me an inch of wine. And I thought, your daughter's talking about how hard she's worked. And that's what you have to interrupt her to say. And then she did it again. Kim wanted cheese and crackers. She was doing spray can cheese on a cracker and made some sort of a joke about it as Ariana was trying to talk about her successes. And I don't know if the average person, to me, that was one of the most important scenes in the entire episode. It just turned on this little clinical piece in my brain. And I thought, this child is just wanting love from her mother. All she wants is love and support. And she's afraid to draw a boundary because she's afraid what that will mean for her relationship. And I just think that's horrifying.
It is horrifying. It is one of those things. And especially if they get another season, it's going to be very bad. I think it's going to be something that we revisit on season 2 of Next Gen.
Yeah. And it's just the one thing Ariana said to finish out this conversation is Ariana admitted, we've had tough conversations, but I want my mom to be my best friend. And I just think it goes to how much parents need to be the parent and not parentify their child in terms of having their child solve their problems and all of these other things. And Hudson made a point of, Kim is plenty capable of making money on her own. And he's right. She is. So what frustrates me is that not only did this action of Kim's put Ariana behind the starting line, which is to me just egregious, it's also going to erode her very good relationship with Hudson, who they've been together since like high school or even junior high. Like they've been together for a long time. And I just think that it's so unfortunate when parents don't realize how their shit is getting in the way of their child's happiness. Because I have empathy for Kim, but when it comes to this, I feel very protective of Ariana.
Well, it's hard when your mother thinks of herself as a star, and that is, that's her business, is that, just like Jax Taylor, what are they going to do with the rest of their lives? They just need to depend on this. And so it's set up that, it's like, do I think, Kim's going to go back to school and get a degree? No.
Yeah, no, but it's like she's doing this new show with Brielle about removing the plastic surgery. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's like, I forget what it's called, but it's essentially people who have overdone plastic surgery and who are regretting it and they want to remove some of it. But what's interesting is that Brielle is on the show with Kim. And what Brielle has come forward and said is that she's regretted all the plastic surgery she's done. But the reason she did it was because, of course, it was modeled by Kim, right? And so it just goes to show it's not, with parents, it's not do as I say, not as I do. Kids learn through modeling. And whether we like it or not, they're learning about how we feel about ourselves and the world and how to communicate and all these things just by watching a parent. And so, unfortunately, Kim's stuff has now trickled down. And this is how generational trauma works. Kim had her stuff with her mom, trickled down to her. Kim didn't necessarily deal with it. And now it's trickling down to Ariana and Brielle, who, if they don't deal with it, that's going to trickle down to their kids. And that is generational trauma. The last thing I want to say before we end, talking a little bit about Real Housewives of Atlanta, it's been very sleepy. The part 1 reunion was pretty lame, but the part 2 reunion, it was kind of interesting. But the one part that I took away from it that was so hilarious is that Drew, who I'm not a fan of, I just don't like Drew at all. She's just not for me. Everything she does bugs me. But Drew claimed that she speaks 5 languages.
Yeah.
And I think anyone who knows Drew knows that that's definitely not true. But she pulled out a book at the reunion about the 5 love languages. So that's what, yeah.
Drop
and
it with
Ryan,
Drew. Nice.
Can I be honest? Drew and Ralph have had such a contentious relationship. I don't even think that Drew can say with a straight face that she understands the 5 love languages at all. I don't think she even speaks those.
Yeah, I think if you understand the love language, what a mess. That's what are you going to say?
I died.
What do you? I would never. And we think you would be smart enough to think that a little down the road, of like, if I say this, what will people think about, come on,
right,
you don't understand,
right.
And also love languages don't mean anything unless you're with a partner that understands love languages as well,
right.
Doesn't mean a lot.
it's not about understanding what they are. It's about understanding what yours are and what your partner's are, right? And then that's really how it's supposed to work. But so just to be clear, the five love languages are words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. What are your love languages, Ryan? Just curious. Do you know what they are?
Watching Bravo. No. Lovely. I love. Yeah, I'm still one of the. It's not really been in the last couple of years, but I used to really. I love gifts. I mean, I know that sounds, but like any like that. Yeah. I mean, like that was always cool. I don't speak any languages, obviously. I don't really, I mean, obviously I'm aware of what love languages are. I just never looked into them too deeply. But I mean, in my relationship, I like laughing, like, I don't know what that is, but when you can laugh with your partner, I think that to me is the most, valuable.
Yeah. Of course. And listen, I mean, so I think that's quality time. Like words of affirmation is just like the I love yous, you are amazing, I appreciate you, like that sort of stuff. Quality time.
Yeah, I don't need words of affirmation. I definitely don't need words of affirmation. I'm good on that. Like I usually, like I have a weird, don't need that. But quality time I do love.
Receiving gifts, I like that one too. Acts of service is just like when you do things, taking out the garbage, washing the dishes, like that sort of stuff. And then of course, physical touch is self-explanatory. So listen, I just thought it was funny to bring up because, Drew is really trying to do too much. And I was just like, I can't with this whole thing. But the funny thing is she brought the book. There's like a famous book about the 5 love languages. She brought it and Kelly was like, I need that. I'll take it. I was like, I died.
Drew is a funny character though, because she's just like, what do I call her? Like, it's like a Charlie Brown element of just like, for as much as she will like grandstand and say all these things, you're just like, nothing really, like, people disrespect her all the time. Like, I'm like, there must be something in how she carries herself through the world. I mean, she even got last chair at the reunion. And I was just like, wow, that was even like Cynthia Bailey, obviously a legend, but like a friend of like I was really surprised by that. I was like, even disrespected in the chair placement.
I think she was too, because she kept craning her neck out to try to like talk and look. And I was like, I could tell Drew feels some kind of way, which listen, I get it, but I don't know. I think we could do without her personally, but that's, that's just me. But here's the thing. I want Cynthia. I want Candy. Phaedra.
I mean, the real thing is, will Nene come back,
Well, here, and so going to kind of close out this conversation, talking about Jax, and Phaedra came back from the dead after she was exiled and all of that other stuff. And so, Bravo loves to bring back problematic people. But listen, we all need redemption arcs. And so I'm a believer in we all deserve the right to redeem ourselves. I don't know if Phaedra's necessarily done that. I don't know that she totally owned her stuff. And I think that's why the season of Real Housewives of Atlanta didn't hit for a lot of people, because it just felt odd. And then Kenya gave a statement and she talked about hoping to be back. So, it's a weird Bravo world with, how we put people on ice and then we bring them back and then we put them on other shows. And, it's just a very interesting scenario. But I just want to thank you, Ryan, for being here today, taking your time. Thank you so much.
Always amazing. I look forward to this. And I mean, for me personally, I don't know about the audience, I have loved this conversation. So thank you.
Me too. And thank you very much. But please let everybody know where they can see you, plug, promote everything you got going on.
You know what? I'm here for you. Like the show's there. It's So Bad It's Good. And check it out if you want. If not, totally get it. I'm happy to have this conversation. Oh, wait. No, I do. I never promote. We have a YouTube. So YouTube, So Bad It's Good with Ryan Bailey. If you want to see any of the interviews or any of the solo recaps, they're up there. Maritza, who I work with, loads everything and puts all the graphics and all that stuff. So I want to give a shout out to the YouTube.
Perfect. And when I post this on YouTube, I will tag you.
There we go.
My following is not huge on YouTube either, but
It's a lot of work. It's a lot.
It is a lot of work. It's a lot. But yes, thank you everyone for listening. Please check out Ryan. So Bad It's Good with Ryan Bailey. Of course, please, if you could be so kind to give a 5-star review.
Yes, do that, you guys.
We would love that so much. That's been a real journey for me too, those damn reviews. So I appreciate when people leave good ones. Thank you so very much for seeing me and not being determined to misunderstand me, the people who get me. So thank you very much. So you can find this episode. It'll be on Patreon, YouTube. I post to Facebook and Blue Sky and Instagram and all this other stuff. So you'll find us everywhere. And can't wait to have you back, Ryan. Thank you so much. And for today, I will say sending love to you and yours, and ta-ta for now.
Bye, Bishop.
Disclaimer. Posts are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide medical advice. Your Bish therapist is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The podcast, my opinions, and posts are my own and not associated with past or present employers, any organizations, Bravo TV, Greyheart Productions, or any other television network. The information in YBT podcast and on its social media is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat. Please do not act or refrain from acting based on anything you read, see, or hear on YBT podcast or associated social media. Communicating with YBT via email and or social media does not form a therapeutic alliance. Melissa, operator of YBT, is unable to provide any therapeutic advice, treatment, or feedback.